The Fearless Podcast, in a time of deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. All right, y'all. Welcome back to the Fearless Podcast. We are at episode 50. And today I'm really excited to have an awesome guest on today. His name is John Bush, and he is a fellow Texan, so that's exciting. And I want to welcome John to the Fearless Podcast. How you doing today, John?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for taking the time and for coming on. So for those of our listeners that aren't familiar with you and all the many awesome things that you do, maybe you could give us a little bit of background and what was the impetus of Exit and Build and how we got to where we are today.
Okay, sure. So I live in Central Texas in Bastrop County, was born and raised in Austin. I've been an activist for freedom, truth, and peace for about 22 years now. So more than half of my life, I've been trying to help people create freedom, trying to create greater freedom and prosperity for myself. Did a lot of politics, learned about libertarianism from Ron Paul's presidential campaign in 2007, 2008. And after that, we did a lot of political activism in Austin and at the Texas legislature. But what I came to realize was that instead of creating greater freedom for ourselves, our families, our community, we were actually simply slowing the growth of tyranny. And that wasn't satisfactory for me at all. So started exploring other ways of making change and came to the conclusion that if we want to create greater freedom, we have to take responsibility for creating greater freedom in our own lives rather than relying on politicians to do the right thing, yelling at government buildings, or expecting 50% or more of the voting public to really care deeply about freedom and liberty. So that's what brought us to this Exit and Build strategy, right? So we got the Exit and Build Land Summit coming up, and it's all about exiting the cities, buying land, and building community in the country, becoming more prepared, becoming more independent, growing your own food. But this Exit and Build strategy overall is about exiting systems of tyranny, exiting the pharmaceutical industrial complex, exiting big tech and reliance on banks, raising our kids together, right? And building these new institutions, creating systems and relationships and networks and trade amongst ourselves so we can hopefully let the future generation have a better opportunity than we did to really experience what freedom and personal responsibility are all about.
Well, now y'all know why John is on the program, because he echoed a lot of the sentiments that we talk about here. What led me to permaculture? I always quote Bill Mollison, permaculture is sedition. And me and my wife, we were very politically involved in the 9/12 project and all this stuff. And we went to DC and we came to the exact same realization that the beast is going to beast and the system's going to do what it's going to do. But if we want to take control of our lives and control what we control and change what we can change, it's all about parallel society, parallel community. And as a matter of fact, I just got a comment yesterday, and we call it a viewer mail, but this was, let me see if I can find this here. It was, the guy goes by the screen name Rule 1336. Okay, TD, it's all your fault, dude. You keep saying get out of the city. So next week I'll be moving to rural Mizzou to start homesteading. I'll be growing some of my own food and participating in an ongoing parallel community economy. In the name of Jesus and the wisdom power of the Spirit, I will try, fail, and adjust. Thanks for being the kick in the tail that I needed. I was wondering something, Go. I'm going to start composting soon as I can. Do you know where I can get a globalist to get that kick started? So I thought that was incredibly appropriate, because this is what we talk about all the time. And we just had a local meetup for our channel this past Saturday. It was really great. Had about 30 or 40 people show up.
Cool.
There was an older couple there, not real old, a couple probably in their early 60s, and they live in Arlington. And we were talking about this Exit and Build, and they were asking me my opinion. And I'm like, look, y'all really you need to move away from your densely populated area, not crazy far or anything, and to start this process, because the beauty of the process is it's never too late to start. And the great thing about what you're putting together, obviously the perfect ideal scenario is to be there in person, but you're also providing a digital immersive experience where you can get all the same data and information. If for whatever reason it doesn't fit into your schedule, but you can still participate, and there's still a community there. And last year, I think, was our first year coming, and we have a personal testimonial about being at Exit and Build and the type of impact it creates and the type of connections you make. So last year we were at the summit, we were just walking in, and I saw this guy, a couple guys sitting there. I said, I think that's Mike Adams. And so I went up to Mike and introduced myself, and he was like, hey, can I interview you? And we're like, yeah, sure. So it's me and my boys. And so that led to us being on his radio program, and he invited us to come back to be in his studio. So my whole family came down for an interview in his studio. That opened up so many doors and networks for us in our community and with other people. And, we sell our own beef. That opened up a lot of opportunities there. So these are the type of events that you want to be at, even if, we moved 10 years ago. We've started homesteading probably about 8 years ago, and we've been doing this for a little bit, and we've learned a lot, and we've screwed up a lot. But if you're just getting into this is like the perfect scenario where learn from the people that have kind of already done this and that are also systematizing it, or networking, or synergistically working together, whether it's to find the property or to develop the property, or whether it's maybe an intentional community. It is just a great group of people. It's a very intimate setting, in my opinion. You get an enormous amount of one-on-one time with the different instructors. Last year, Jack Spirko did a composting class or biochar class, and it was a really small group of people, got to ask all your questions. You get all your questions answered. And then with the meals on site, we just had so much opportunity to interact and meet different people. And we met some of our subscribers and then made some new friends. I just really can't brag enough on the event. Incredibly well put together, very professional. It's a very beautiful venue. We rented a little Airbnb that's like 5 minutes up the road. So we got the same Airbnb this year.
Sweet.
And we're looking forward to coming back out. And maybe you just want to talk about the event this year and maybe some of the speakers and what you foresee for this year.
Sure. Well, I'm glad that you had that experience, because it's, we consciously cultivate an event that encourages networking and relationship building, because ultimately that's one of the most valuable assets that we could have in this world. I talk a lot about Bitcoin and gold and silver, right? And we're here in Texas, firearms, a valuable asset too. But at the end of the day, what's most important is having tight-knit relationships with other people that share the same values as we do, and that'll have your back and you have their back. It's reciprocal. So that's really what the event is all about. There's tons of homesteading conferences, permaculture, land development, you name it. But ours covers all those topics, but we really center on how can we become stronger by working together with other people that have the same vision and the same goals that we do. And there's all sorts of networking opportunities at lunch. And we even do like this community matchmaking thing where we connect people. We help to facilitate the networking and connect people based on folks wanting to move or get together in a certain geographic area, like Texas, for example. And then we also split up into groups, folks that want to do homeschooling. Maybe there's faith-based groups that want to get together. There's people that are more into the carnivore, but then there's folks that might be vegan as well. And so I'm a big meat eater myself, but there's folks that are within the community all over the place. But yeah, it's a great event, and we're really excited. You mentioned permaculture earlier, and Bill Mollison. So we're actually going to be hearing from David Holmgren, who is the co-originator of permaculture, along with Bill Mollison. I had the privilege of interviewing him recently, and these permaculture guys just have this way of thinking they're so in tune with systems and inputs and outputs. And so obviously you can talk shop with them about land and development and design and food production, but the way that they think in general about social issues and freedom and creating more optimal societies and community arrangements is pretty fascinating too. So Mike Adams, of course, the health ranger, he was there as an attendee last year. So it was cool just to have him around. He's here in Central Texas also, but he'll be speaking and doing one of the keynotes this year. We've always invited Jack Spirko and Nicole Sauce back. They've participated in every single one, in large part because they're not only the tactics that they teach and the strategies they teach for homesteading and survival, but their mindset too. And they're freedom folks through and through. And that's what the event is all about. It's not just become more independent, go be off in a homestead and you're taken care of. It's there's a lot of really ugly stuff going on in this world, a lot of evil stuff. I like your use of the word beast. The beast is going to beast. It is a beast system that's being erected all around us. Central bank digital currency is literally the mark of the beast. It couldn't be more clear what's written in the book of Revelation. And so it's up to us to do something about it, not just for ourselves. Obviously, we're motivated by self-interest. There's nothing wrong with that. And as a father, you know, and a fellow father, we definitely want to see our kids safe and survive and not be manipulated by all these weird agendas. But we're kind of at a turning point in history where the technology exists. The media has brainwashed large portions of the population. And if something doesn't change drastically, at least for a significant portion of the population, the freedom folks, the remnant, people that are ready to try something different, this totalitarian Great Reset, New World Order could really cement its grip on a bunch of people. So we're hoping to not only protect ourselves, provide better for our family, insulate our families from this stuff, but show people there's another way to live, reconnecting with the land, traditional family values, eating well, living well, being an entrepreneur, making your own way, and really just emanating all that freedom. So, and the speakers are all aligned with that. We got Joel Salatin back. He's another guy that's like, he'll teach you how to do the rotational grazing. And he's managed to create a wonderful empire out of his farm and teaching folks. But again, he's a renegade as well. So he's going to teach us how to skirt the man and stay out of trouble. And really excited to have him back as well.
It's amazing at the holistic approach and how much intersecting overlap there is just with entrepreneurship, freedom. You're not free if you don't have the ability to do what you want to do. And for most of us now, if you're real minimalist and earthy, and maybe what you want to do is like sit under a tree or something like that. But for the rest of us, and if that's what you want to do, there's, that good for you. But for us that have children and want a living legacy, what our message has always been is have and share a living legacy with your children. Because the main paradigm of postmodern America is accumulation, and then you die and you bequeath it to your heirs, and then there's this weird thing as far as whether they deserve it or not. And usually the government takes half and all that stuff. But our mentality has been, why not create a living legacy that you share and participate with your children in real time? So that's teaching them responsibility, entrepreneurship, and all of these other things that can literally be incorporated with that. That's the beauty of it. Like, for example, we started selling our grass-fed beef locally, and this was something that was a passion of ours. We wanted to grow our own food. We wanted to know where it came from and all these different things. And then when we had some abundance, we said, what if we offer this for local pickup? And that literally became a segment of our boys portfolio. The three oldest boys, they have a sawmilling business, they have a construction business, and then we have the beef business. And when you participate in these events with these knowledgeable speakers that have been there, done that, they got the t-shirt and they're showing you the pitfalls and they're giving you the recommendations, you can pay for that experience. You can experience it. And then you're standing on the shoulder of giants. You know, you can see further down the road because you stand on the shoulders of the people that blaze the trail, and you'll see farther, and they'll be able to tell you about pitfalls, or this is how I messed up or screwed up. Don't do this, try this. And all of us will be responsible for making our own decisions and trying and failing and adjusting. But the information is critical. There are a lot of people that still don't see this CBDC thing. They still see a lot of this larger narrative as a conspiracy and fear mongering. And there's some minor truth to that. But the beauty of Exit and Build and what you always talk about is, if we focus on solutions, if we spend our time in performing and working with the solutions and developing relationships and developing parallel, and if we can develop parallel and stay parallel, this is what's going to give us redundancy. And it struck me that last year, you know, when we were there at the summit, I was like, John's a genius. And I saw it, and it just kind of came to me. And maybe I'm slower than most people, so maybe a lot of other people got this before I did. But I remember you had your smaller property, you know, and I knew you guys were looking for a larger property and even considering like an intentional community and all that stuff. And I'm like, wow, like the big picture of John's providing this service and creating this community, and it's going to help him facilitate his dream of a larger property, a larger community. And then you think about the double impact that directly has on the state that you live in. So we're worried about, you know, the political people are like, well, don't let the Californians come in and turn our state purple and all that stuff. From my experience, I meet Californian transplants every day. And we had 4 or 5 California transplants at our local meetup recently. And these people are my people. And just because they used to live in California or whatever, I think a lot of that thought process or paradigm of these blue states are going to turn red states purple is still part of this Hegelian dialectic, this left-right thing, because it's really about core values and ideals. And it doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter where you were born. It's all about what are you going to do today and tomorrow. And I think that's what Exit and Build helps you facilitate.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we actually have a lot of folks that are moving here to Bastrop to just be part of this movement. And we are still pursuing that larger property. This is a big vision that Rebecca and I have had, to build basically like a eco neighborhood, intentional community type deal. And we finally got some real clarity on specifically how to do that. We were a bit hung up on the legal structure and if there was going to even be an investment opportunity for folks to bring the capital together. We finally got some clarity on specifically what we are going to do, what we are doing, and we'll be revealing more about that at the event. We just before this, I was like a couple minutes late to hop onto the StreamYard, but just before this, we were touring a 93-acre property, a ranch just a little bit south of here. It was nice. There was a big creek running through it. It wasn't, I'm not sure if it's the property we'll go with, but we're actively doing that. And because we have this clarity, things are accelerating fast, but it has been a long-term big picture kind of deal. But yeah, your vibe attracts your tribe. So politics aside, it's a phony left-right paradigm. And even more so than like political philosophy, what's most important, like you said, are the values that people have and how they show up in the world. Because I learned long ago, being part of this liberty movement, there's a lot of just immature kind of poke the bear type people, especially online and social media. It's easy to be a total jerk on social media when you're not face to face with somebody. People are a lot more tame when they're in person, or they don't say anything at all. But anyway, I realized, like, I'd rather hang out with somebody that's more left leaning, but they're a good person and they're not always trying to stir something up or whatever. So yeah. And that's another important piece of meeting people in person and having meetups. You really get a feel for someone when you're there in person. And a large part of what we're doing is not only helping people to transition what we call the urban exit the cities, but also to build the community and the relationships. And you never really know someone well. And it takes more than just sitting down for dinner, although it's a great way to feel someone out and learn about them. But we like to stress test folks if we're going to be bringing them further into our inner circle. So they come volunteer at the event, for example, which tends to be a little intensity there. So see how people really show up in the world. You were talking about children and entrepreneurship. For folks that come in person, we actually have the option to get this child care pass. It's not child care, but there's a professional service that focuses on entrepreneurship. So during the first couple days, a lot of the kids are going to make some little wares or some crafts or whatever good or service that comes to them. And then they're going to sell it to the folks that are attending. My kids always come to the event and have a little booth there and they end up doing pretty well for themselves. And the attendees are always really impressed with my son, especially his sales skills. So he learns from his old man. But you mentioned earlier, you can watch virtually, of course. So ideally join us in person. Come hang out with the Texas boys, shake hands with Joel Salatin and Jack Spirko. If you can't make it in person, you can actually sign up for the first day and a half totally free. So we try to make it as accessible as possible, introduce this strategy and this movement and this mindset to folks, and then bring you into our community so we can stay in touch with you. So totally free, no strings attached. You can watch the first day and a half. It's a 3-day event. You can also get a virtual immersion pass. And in that way, you'll be able to watch all 3 days. You'll get lifetime access to the replays. And we call it a virtual immersion pass because we really, and we've done this multiple different times for multiple different events, we try to make the virtual experience immersive. And, we say it's like you're really there. Nothing beats actually being there. But we have these TVs actually behind me. There's these big 4 screens here. Let me show you here. So these big 4 screens here. We'll have these screens there, and the Zoom participants will be on one of these screens. They'll be showing up there. And then you can actually ask questions of the speakers, which is pretty cool. And and then you get a bunch of incredible bonuses too. So there's a ton of ways to show up, but we really are trying to make this as impactful as possible. And for people that are interested in these ideas, this is going to give you a really big boost of motivation and encouragement. Because like I said before, we talk a lot about the tactics and strategies, but oftentimes people, they feel a little defeated after their first Texas summer, for example, trying to grow a garden in Texas. It's a pain in the butt. Or maybe they start with livestock and one of the chickens gets killed by I don't know about the raccoons, but a coyote or snakes are eating all the eggs. What's going on here? It's hard. It's hard doing the homesteading thing. You guys have been doing it for 8 years, so you're probably a bit past the learning curve, but things always spring up. And then if you're anything like what we are, we're always growing and expanding, and your sons have 3 businesses now. So I know that's not easy. So the mindset's a big piece of it as well. Overcoming limiting beliefs, persisting, figuring out what our purpose is, and really aligning with that purpose, because that's how you tap into the good life more so than money or things like you were saying, or fame or some big show or views. What's most important is the impact that we have on other people, because for me, that's when I feel the most fulfilled.
Right. It's creating community. We just started doing these meetups last week, and we're going to do them once a month.
Cool.
And it was so encouraging. It was very encouraging to us. We are on social media. We are super shadow banned. We've been hovering at 100,000 here for several years, and our views are all over the place. But then and your views are way down. And then you say, hey, we're going to get together, and 40 or 50 people show up.
That's
and
awesome.
People drive 2 to 3 hours, and you're just like, wait a minute. Wow. Like, you realize what kind of impact you're making. And these people come and they're like, don't stop doing what you're doing. It's really encouraging. This is what I did. That's what I did. And it's so cool. And this is just that times 1,000, where there's a lot more organization to it. There's an enormous amount of information that is geared to the who, what, when, where, how, and why. John, maybe you could speak to a little bit. You had mentioned something about getting out of the cities and moving to a more rural area. Maybe you could explain your philosophy on why you think that's necessary.
Okay. Well, there's 2 tracks to examine. One is a reactionary way, one's a reactionary reason, and one's a proactive reason. If anybody watching lives in a city, it's rough. It's getting worse and worse and worse. And I believe that it's by design. A lot of it's just ignorance and stupid politics, like this weird leftist progressive thing, and the woke piece about it as well. And the economics of it all, with all the incentives and the over taxation. But it's almost as though the major cities, almost every single one of them in the United States, are in decay. And it's a collapsing empire, like the Roman Empire's final throes in many ways, especially with an expansive military empire even. And so there's a thing that we're trying to escape. And a big part of it has to do with crime, homelessness, increasing cost of living, burdensome government, nanny state government. That's one of the big reasons. We always wanted to get a homestead, my wife and I had a homestead a while back. That's where my kids were born with my first wife. And we had 120 chickens at one point, and we had all these gardens, right? And then I moved back into the city, and I was like, okay, there's a lot of cool stuff to do, of course, but it wasn't in alignment with the life that I want to live. So there's all those traditional problems that have been around for a while. But another reason why it's important to get out of the city, if you care about freedom and privacy and bodily autonomy, there's this smart city agenda that's being accelerated very quickly. And essentially what that is it's a city that has all these various elements that are interconnected through technology and telecommunication. And a lot of it has to do with this push to lower the carbon output, this phony environmentalism, which is really more about controlling human beings and more in herd management. You guys know about managing herds. A lot of these technocrats and the predator class, they view us as the herd that they need to manage and more effectively manage through technology and surveillance. So there's this concept of an Internet of Things, where you're driving down the street and your cell phone or the computer in your car pings some receiver that then lets them know that this particular person or this group of people are flowing in this way. There's a smog meter that does this or that. And the 15-minute city concept comes into play, where there's different sections of the city that are sectioned off. Of course, this all will be interwoven with the central bank digital currency, which will be a digital currency that'll be completely surveilled. But more so than that, because most of the dollars that we spend now, most of it's digital, unless you're somebody that's old school using cash, but you can't really do that online. Although we have a company where we sell natural health products, and we do let people mail in cash, old school style. But the central bank digital currencies, the real fear is that there's a lot of socially engineering that's going to be caked in. Smart contracts essentially will allow for there's this thing called a personal carbon allowance that the World Economic Forum is pushing for. If folks aren't aware of the World Economic Forum, it's like this consortium, this think tank of oligarchs, professors, intellectuals, media, governmental leaders, corporate heads, and they're all pushing for this great reset, which is going to reshape civilization, reshape the way we do business, basically centralize power in the hands of the corporation and the technocrats. That's like organizing societies through science. That's what a technocracy is. But either way, what they want to do is leverage environmentalism and this carbon cap, carbon output, personal carbon allowance. So your household, if your household exceeds a certain amount of carbon output based on what you buy, how you travel, how much you're recycling or not recycling, then all of a sudden it'll be more expensive when you fill up at the gas tank, assuming you still have an internal combustion engine. It'll be more expensive to get a flight. Maybe you won't be able to exit a certain district of your city or go travel to visit your family because your family's already put too much carbon out into the world. And this seems far-fetched, but this is already being implemented slowly but surely in many different capacities. And these technocrats and this group of people, the predator class, New World Order, shadow government, deep state, whatever you want to call it, they write about this openly. And so that movement, that agenda is going to be most prevalent in the major cities. Now, contrast that with the country life. For example, during COVID, my ex-wife, she lived north of Houston and I was in Austin, and we had split shared custody, but we would have to drive halfway as a 3-hour drive to meet each other. It's a total pain in the butt. But when I'm driving out of Austin during COVID, everyone's wearing their masks. You go into the gas station, people are all weird about how close you are. The further you get east of Austin, now we're getting out to Giddings, going down 290, right? Then you don't see a mask for miles and miles, for towns and towns. So there's a culture in the country. So what I was sharing was what we want to avoid. But more importantly, even if all that stuff wasn't happening, I think for most folks, the country life is more in alignment with our nature. Slower pace. You're more connected with the seasons. It's not all asphalt, right? You got the grasshoppers hopping all around in the summertime. People are more friendly. They're more neighborly. That whole Southern gentleman thing is more prevalent. It hasn't been eroded out of generation after generation like a lot of the city culture tends to have. People get each other's back. It's much safer because probably, good 25% of the folks like myself are carrying a firearm all the time. Armed society is a polite society. There's more land, reconnecting with the land, raising cattle, chickens, goats, growing your own food. There's just something special about it. And I think it's a lifestyle that is more conducive to the good life and slower pace and friendlier. So yeah, there's, again, 2 reasons. One, there's a lot of crazy nightmare stuff going on, and that's only going to accelerate. And we're entering this new weird technocracy thing with this smart city agenda where everything's going to be surveilled. But more importantly, and I encourage people to align with what it is they want in life rather than what they're afraid of or what they don't want, because where your attention goes, your energy flows. And the more you focus on living the good life, having a homestead, raising your kids, even projecting into the future, having, like you said, a legacy. The legacy that I want to leave my kids is a nice developed property that's producing fruit, and they help me build it. So they take ownership in it and maybe they could pass it on to their kids, right? That's the lifestyle I want. I want to encourage people to focus more on what it is you want in life, because that makes it easier for you to actually pull it off. That was a long answer to a question there, but yeah, that's why we should get the heck out of the cities.
In my opinion, and regarding the right-left paradigm, the conservative solution is freedom cities, which is kind of hilarious because it's still going to stack them, pack them, track them, and it's going to be heavily federally subsidized. When the real solution is to do the opposite, right? Spread out, love your neighbor, find out who your neighbor is, get some space between you. Because when you talk about conflict resolution, let's say there's a heated conflict, 2 men, the first thing they teach you is create space, right? And rural living is this natural created space. Yeah. And there's something totally different, right? When you can go outside your front door, you look left, you look right, you see trees, maybe you see some horses, some cows. You don't see people. Bob and Tom aren't like upset at you because you didn't mow your lawn. And, and this all just I wish I could demonstrate this, but we've been here 10 years. I walked out of my house very early this morning, probably 6 o'clock, and you breathe in, you hear all the chickens and the roosters crowing, and you see the critters, and we have lots of fruit trees. We're 5 years into this 5-phase food forest.
Nice.
And I'm just like, I wish that there was a way to encapsulate this so that somebody could experience it. And the beauty of Exit and Build is not only do you have this in-person training and teaching, but you have these farm tours that are in essence an encapsulation of that, where you can see other people that are actively doing it. You can watch them doing it. And when you see that, you're like, oh yeah, like this is possible. These folks did it. Wow. They just started 5 years ago and look what they're doing. And if they can do it, I can do it. As soon as somebody can see that it's done, it's just like the 4-minute mile, right? And once that 4-minute mile was broken, it was just like bang, bang, bang. And this is the same thing. This is why we're trying to encourage people. And we're just like, hey, I know you've always grown up in a city. I know you've always grown up on a cul-de-sac or whatever, but according to all the metrics and what we're seeing and the control grid and everything that's going on, it really looks like you should probably move. And I'm not telling you where or how, but strongly consider it and give it a try. And you're going to meet these people. Oh yeah. I just felt like I should do that. We did that last year, and here's what's happening. Here's what's going on. And, as soon as you step out to do that, things just start to fall into place. And what's great is if you have these different ideas and you get to meet in a group of like-minded people, all these different answers, you're like, yeah, but what about this? And what about that? And then a speaker will say the exact question that you have in your mind, and they'll answer your question before you ever ask it. And that's all the power of association and hang around with like-minded people. And then meeting these people, getting their name, getting their phone number. Wow, you live 30 miles from me. I didn't even know that, and you're naturally creating networks and creating this parallel. Social media is great. It's neat that we can interact this way, but when you get to meet in person, it's so much more impactful and powerful. And when it comes to what may or may not happen to the electric grid or social media, and all these different things, you're going to want to have a network of real people that you can reach out and talk to in real life and touch and work together. Because that infrastructure, that community is going to be what right now, the large part of the population is always looking to the government for that solution, and the point is to create your own community and come up with your own solutions within that community and then work together to achieve those goals collectively.
Yep, for sure. And it's important also for folks to go ahead and start doing this. Do it now. You don't want to be in a situation where you put it off. Life, you're just so busy with life all the time that you're not making it a priority. I've been studying Napoleon Hill a lot more lately. He wrote Think and Grow Rich. There's also this really awesome book that I've been reading right now called Outwitting the Devil. And the whole premise of the book is a conversation that Napoleon Hill has with the devil. And the devil reveals that he puts people into the habit of drifting by instilling fear in them. And once he has them captured, and he captures folks from a young age, and once he has people, and he helps to capture them by having captured their parents, and they're raised in this state of fear, not thinking for themselves without a definite purpose, a definiteness of purpose where they have a mission in life and they're dedicated to that mission. It's defined. He says that people then get into a hypnotic rhythm where it's just life's going on. It's a program. They're not even conscious that they're in this rhythm where they have all these doubts, not critical thinking, not independent thinking. They're just carrying out someone else's program, working for someone else, they instilled a bunch of negativity and doubt, maybe from their parents, maybe from getting bullied when they were younger, wherever it comes from. They internalized it, and now they're caught in this habit of drifting. They're drifting. They're not driven by their definiteness of purpose. And so I just want to encourage people to snap out of that. And of course, a lot of folks that are red pilled or awake or whatever, we feel like we got it all figured out, but we also get caught in this hypnotic rhythm. We could all be doing more. We could all be showing up stronger for our wives and for our children and dedicated to improving our craft and our trade, right? But we're also caught in this rhythm. But when you have that definite purpose and when you step into faith over fear, that's when you can really tap into your higher potential. And so I just want to encourage people you got to be aware that you're in this hypnotic rhythm. That's the first part. Like someone that struggles with alcohol, the first part's admitting you have a problem with alcohol, right? You recognize you're in this hypnotic rhythm and you do everything you can in the moment to get out of it, because the last thing you want is the guy that's playing catch up or coming to your friends. Hey, I know you guys have been preparing for a while. Things got real crazy. How can I help? And you're like, no, man, we needed you a while ago and we already got our little crew here. We do want to be, welcoming to folks, but at the end of the day, there's a limit. And I just want to encourage people to provide value now, prepare for yourself now, find people that you're aligned with and provide value to them, build shared value based on shared values now. So that's the cool thing about Spirko's tagline. He does the survival podcast for if times get tough, or even if they don't, this is how we ought to be living anyway. So you talked about your fruit trees and your food forest. Of course, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago or 5 years ago. The next best time is right now. So don't wait for crap to hit the fan. Maybe it never will hit the fan. Likely it will. This is what we ought to be doing anyway. Being prepared, being more independent, being able to be confident in our ability to take care of ourselves, not dependent on government, not dependent on Jeff Bezos and Amazon, not dependent on the grocery store down the street. We have identified the weak spots and the vulnerabilities in our armor, and we've strengthened that armor in large part by forming tight-knit, reciprocal human relationships. And that's what the X and Build Land Summit's all about. It's, again, there's tons of homesteading conferences, preparedness, survival conferences. Our event teaches you that. But more importantly, it teaches you and it brings you into an environment where you can meet other people that will get your back. Just make sure you got their back too.
Yep. And Napoleon Hill, I think he quoted W. Clement Stone, and that was very impactful to me. Do it now. And that phrase took my sales career to the next level.
Cool.
And I teach that to the upcoming sales guys. Do it now. Stop procrastinating. The act of doing cancels the fear. And so if you're actively doing that, and then you're working with other people that are actively doing that, it's synergistic. And you just made one of the greatest points for creating parallel community, parallel society, interactive network. Bring value to the table. Mm-hmm. That's something that Jim Rohn talks about. Don't bring your problems to the market. Bring your ideas. Bring value, right? And if you do that, it'll exponentially expand, and people will want to be around you. You're adding value. You're giving back. They're adding value. They're giving back. You're going to look forward to getting together. You're going to look forward to dream building and looking into the future, but you can't do it as a taker. The Prussian school system teaches us to be worker bees and part of the cog in the machine and the state. And what that is a taker. So you have to take, the state has to provide. And so you need the state because you're a consumer. Now, if you're a producer, you flip that entire paradigm on its head. And if you develop more value and you bring that value to the market, you bring it to your parallel community and your parallel society, you will be in high demand, and your community, people will desire to be part of it. And that's really what I think you've done, John. You've done a great job at having the vision and then putting the right people together to continue to grow this movement. I just really think it's awesome. And it's not all this about politics and who we need to elect or who we need to throw out or whatever, but we can actively do something every day. And it involves our children. It involves our families, our wives, and we can grow together and have that vision and succeed and have success.
Yeah, man. That's what it's all about. Yep. And no better time than now, like you said. So you're on to the Jim Rome and the Jim W. Clement Stone, all that stuff. That's, I tell you what, the success philosophy and that literature and going to conferences and events and workshops, it's made a dramatic difference in the quality of my life and the success and fulfillment that I enjoy. Just diving deep on all that stuff. Like you said, standing on the backs of giants. We don't have to figure it out on our own. And I just can't overemphasize the importance of the mindset piece, believing in yourself, because, when you want to do great things, even just raising a family is a challenge, raising kids is the hardest thing I've ever done by far. But then you add all these complications and the struggles that kids and teens go through and social media nowadays, it gets really hard. So you got to really be mindful of your inner voice and your thoughts and be conscious of that, because people can be their own worst enemies, or they can be their number one champion and their number one fan. And we get to choose how we show up for ourselves. We might as well choose the latter, because it definitely makes life more enjoyable. That's for sure.
Well, that is awesome. I appreciate your time, John. I know all you guys are working around the clock to make Exit and Land Build Summit 4 the absolute best. We're looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing you again, shaking your hand, seeing the rest of the crew. All the links are down below, y'all. So if you're interested either in attending, we'll see you there. Hope to see Blue Diamond Bill again. Or if you're not in the area or region and you want to do the immersive virtual, please, the value is tremendous. So participate. Any closing thoughts, John, as we wrap up?
Let me think here. Here's one. This is a quote that's really helped me a lot through some challenges. And it's from Napoleon Hill. Within every adversity, every challenge, every struggle lies the seed of an equal or greater benefit. And so a big piece of Napoleon Hill's work and many different success leaders is that, the challenges and the hardship can actually help to lift you up. And when you become anti-fragile, that's, beyond resiliency, where you can weather the storm and you're okay on the other side. When you become anti-fragile, you actually get stronger when there's hardship and challenges and struggle. And that's just, it's kind of something you have to cultivate within yourself, but you got to start somewhere. But when you can tap into that anti-fragile state and you have adversity, you actually see it as a blessing, because you are able to gain some inner wisdom that you can carry forward in your life in order to avoid those problems in the future, but also in order to do greater and greater things as you move forward. So just want to encourage people to keep your head up, stay positive, believe in yourself, and together we can change the world. But you got to start with changing your inner world first.
Well, that is awesome, y'all. Thanks again, John, for your time. Thanks so much. And remember, y'all, stay fearless, my friends.